welcome to Holocaust Remembrance Around the World. My name is Shai Pilnik. I am the director of the Emil and Jenny Fish Holocaust and Genocide Studies Center at Yeshiva University. I hope you join us for a program as we feature guests from all over the world, figures whose work shapes and reshapes Holocaust memory and education day by day, and placing the memory of the Holocaust in a current, relevant, and local context. In this program, every end of the month, we have a guest from a different country, and we consider their contribution to Holocaust education. It is my pleasure today to host the director, the executive director of the Aegis Trust, and the director of the Kigali Genocide Memorial, Freddy Mutanguha. Freddy, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
And good morning according to New York time, but good evening for you. You told me that you are right by the border now between Congo and Rwanda. Is that correct?
Yeah. In the north of of Rwanda, and it's 5 p.m. now.
So, Freddy, we will feature in this program figures from all over the world, but I can only hope that we will have the privilege of hosting guests like you who excel in leadership, in education, and also in peacekeeping. You are a very well-recognized figure around the world. Let's start with the fact that in 2016, the Justice and Security Foundation at The Hague declared you with a Peace Award, as a Peace Award winner. And that, as you shared with me before, the Atlanta Human Rights Museum also recognized you as a prominent activist for human rights. In many ways that I can say are paralleled by the experience of Jews. I can think about Primo Levi or Elie Wiesel. Your choice to dedicate your life to genocide education comes actually out of a tragedy that was not something that you ever elected to do. You are a survivor of the Rwandan genocide, and your journey really begins with the event. So first of all, tell me a little bit about your journey, your personal journey, and then we will go back to the events, the catastrophic events of 1994, and I would like you to describe them to us. But first of all, in your journey, you chose education, and I'm curious why. So tell us about your journey and yourself.
Shai, thank you very much for a brilliant introduction. And I'm very pleased to be part of these important discussions and a dialogue about Holocausts. So as you mentioned, I'm a survivor of genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. I'm a Rwandan, of course, and before I go far, I would like to, for those who do not know about Rwanda and where it is, I would like to share my screen and show you where you can locate Rwanda in Africa. So I don't know if anyone can see.
I can see. No.
You can see, that's great. And on the, you can see is a small country, and it's a red dot in Africa, in the heart of Africa. Actually, we call Rwanda as the heart of Africa. You can see even the shape of it. And it's a small country with a 12 million population, only 338 square meters. And it's landlocked country bordered with Congo on western side, and the north Uganda, and east part is actually Tanzania, and in the south we are bordered with Burundi. So this country have been colonized by two countries. First of all, it had been colonized by the German, and which actually lost the territory in the First World War and taken, and the Rwanda was actually the territory of Rwanda was taken over by Belgians. And this is actually where I want to start the journey of genocide, where with colonial time, Rwanda was inhabitant of a group of people. We have cattle herders, Tutsis. We had the farmers, the Hutus, and you have the another category of fruit gatherers and hunters in the big forest of actually Africa. So the Twa. So the three groups, they used to live in harmony and live together, and their lives as well was in terms of complementarity, because of course the Hutus, the farmers, they needed milk to feed their children, and Tutsis needed food, getting the food from Hutus, and then this was really good harmony. But when the colonizers get in Rwanda, they introduced what they call the divide and rule policy, which they only not say that the Tutsi are actually as the Tutsi and the Hutus and Twa, they're not the same people. They are different, and they not only they're actually different groups, but at the same time they came from different regions. To say that they're totally different in their own countries, and with these divisions, and they were saying that Tutsi are more privileged than the Hutus, and time came where they asked and supported the Hutus to actually to fight, and division starts from there.
So they take an otherwise harmonious society, and they create, I would say, fairly artificially, an ethnic conflict that prior to that did not exist. Where does the conflict find your family?
You know, I was a part of the Tutsi group, and which made ratio after the actually when the colonialists made it like that one, and I'm part of victim, which I think which actually in 1994 the Tutsis were killed and persecuted, and more than 1 million women, men, and children actually lost lives in Rwanda. So so this division actually continued from the colonial time and up to the after the independence, because the Rwandans didn't learn a lesson about what is coming to them as the lessons, as the consequences of division. We're gonna talk about it, about the early warnings, and that's actually what we learned about how the Holocaust started, and the Holocaust happened. Actually, the early warnings that's actually that giving a sign of what will happen for final solutions. In Rwanda, the final solution being in 1994, where the 1 million of Tutsis well, actually innocent Tutsis were killed.
So we will go. We will get to the Holocaust of European Jewry and the connection to the Rwandan genocide in a few minutes. But before, let me ask you: where were you during the genocide? Where was your family? As Tutsi, you were targeted by Hutu extremists. Can you share with us, in brief, how you survived?
Definitely, at the time of genocide, if you can see the my curse here, I was in the Western province, which called it's now the province of West, but it's Kibuye area here. This is actually where we well, the time of genocide, and that time, since I was a young person, a young child, we heard about division. We heard about how Tutsis are enemies of countries, of the country, I mean the country Rwanda, how Tutsi, well, they were called all the names, cockroaches, the snakes. And I can remember even the time I was in primary school, even the teachers have been mentioning how bad and how the Tutsis should be not having the same right as the Hutus, and we used to be used as teaching materials. For example, asking children to stand up. I mean, the Tutsi to stand up, and then the teachers make comments saying that we have 5 or 7 Tutsis in this school, and but everyone have to know actually if they make you to stand up, the comment that the teachers made and they've been making, these are actually the bad ones because they call those people standing up. They are cockroaches, they are snakes, those are people actually causing all the problems of the country. And it become a problem between fellow students, their colleagues, and then you can see even there is hatred that is being taught, but at the same time, the students also learn from it. And this went on where our families been keeping actually persecuted and deprived of different human rights, and many of our families have been put in jail and imprisoned without any crime or any charge, and until 1994, where actually the million of Tutsi were killed. Me and on my personal level, I lost my family, and I mean my parents and the 4 sisters. And I would like to show you the beautiful pictures of them. These are my 4 sisters, and who been killed in 1994. They were killed on the 15th of April in 1994. I couldn't find really nice pictures for them because these are really faded pictures because everything was rooted from my home. And of course, I got this picture from the graves. So these are my parents, my mom and dad, and were killed in 1994 on 14th. Actually, these are really memorable. Actually, the time I remember my family, and the last time I've been together with my family. So I survived with my sister, who fortunately we kept together, and she's sorry. She has now 2 children. I have 3 children this time, and really that makes actually us to be much more having hope for the future. So
You
so this is
survived and
about
they
my
did not.
family.
Freddy, I'm sorry. You survived while they were killed. Did you manage to hide or to flee the danger zone?
So when they attacked my home, I in 1990 actually on, and when they attacked my home, before the attack, my mom gave me an advice that I have to go and find a hide to my colleague in the primary school. His name is Jean Pierre. But at the time they attacked my home, I was not there. So, but I was very very close because we were neighbors. So that's how I was I was saved by my colleague who was actually was not involved in genocide the time actually genocide was happening. So I was not at home, but I was very, very close, and I could hear all the voices when they were finishing them.
So from that moment, you make a decision. The tragedy, and this is a personal tragedy that touched you, is in the past, once it happened. And you decide to dedicate your life to education, and particularly to peace education, looking into how this can be prevented in the future. What made you decide to pursue this direction?
Yeah, I know the cost of violence. I know the costs of division
You
in
do?
my country, how it costed lives of my own family and my friends at school and my friends in different ways, and also my fellow Rwandans who lost their lives in 1994. I know also that education, as Nelson Mandela famously said, that education is the most powerful weapon that you can use to change the world. I know that these people, the genocide in Rwanda, the genocide against the Tutsi didn't happen spontaneously. It was taught. The division and hatred was taught into Rwandan society. First by colonialists, but second by ourselves as fellow Rwandans who embraced the ideology of genocide and kept into even education system, but the younger generation who've been involved into genocide were taught how to kill, how to hate, and how to make sure that they don't live in the same country with Tutsis. So for me, I feel the lack of education was very important. I'm not talking here about education, about numeracy, about literacy, about sciences and mathematics and everything, but this is education that touches heart and mind of
Mhm.
people. It's education that we need to learn about how to think critically, because this is actually the job that I'm doing in the organization and working for Kigali Genocide Memorial, using the memorial, which has itself, it's a place where 250,000 victims of genocide are buried. But we have also a museum that we build alongside of it. And this is used as a teaching material, and also what we put forward as with the support of Aegis Trust, which is he worked to promote the critical thinking, the empathy, and the personal responsibility. We believe that if people can learn how to analyze what they see and what they hear, and they do it in with open heart, with empathy, they are really likely to do the right action. They're likely to make it to actually to show a behavior that's really very positive and very peaceful. So they can make a good choice that they feel responsible of what they've been or what they say or do and their actions. And all three together can build trust. What was lacking in my country right after genocide, we couldn't have a trust together because the um, after genocide, the survivors and perpetrators find themselves in the same country because we're not really hugely divided as the time of genocide. The Hutus and Tutsis lived side by side. We didn't have a Tutsi land and we didn't have a Hutu land. And after genocide, we find ourselves going back home. And we lived with the survivors and perpetrators find themselves actually living together again. But what was lacking is the trust between them. We live with the all fear to say that in next morning someone will come and kill me. my neighbor will turn against me again because this happened the time of genocide. So we want to be with the three, with the critical thinking, with empathy, with personal responsibility. We believe that we can build trust in the community, which actually we have experienced,
In
because the
different
level of
countries, right?
reconciliation is going on this time. It's really something that's very positive for my country. So we feel that this may make a safe community, and also the forgiveness and the reconciliation may be the one of the things that will be the outcome of this kind of education.
So Freddy, you are the executive director of the Aegis Trust, which is based in the United Kingdom. And the trust led to the establishment in Kigali of the Kigali Genocide Memorial, which you are the director of. Um, could you describe to me what your routine is like in Kigali? The memorial is a museum, right?
Yeah.
And it engages in educational activities. And I also see that you take the model of critical thinking, empathy, and responsibility and share it with other countries. So tell me a little bit about the mission and the routine work of the Kigali Memorial.
So first of all, I'd like to say that Aegis Trust, which is, as you mentioned, is a British a NGO. That first of all, the first action, the founder of Aegis Trust, James Smith and Stephen Smith, they are brothers, who are not Holocaust survivors, by the way, but they were amazed and inspired when they visited the Yad Vashem and come back to England and find out that the Holocaust is not taught enough in the English schools. They came back and then they established the Holocaust Museum in Nottinghamshire, where the today this Holocaust Museum is really a center for Holocaust education in the country. But when the leaders of Rwanda, leaders of some of leaders of Rwanda visited the memorial in Nottingham. This was Mayor of Kigali and the Minister of Culture. They visited this museum, and this was 10 years after genocide in Rwanda. We were thinking how to commemorate and how to build up museums that really speak the truth of what happened. They find out a museum that speaks about that truth, and they say, and ask James Smith and Stephen Smith if they can come to help and build a memorial in Kigali. So when they came, the memorial, the design of it was really amazing, because we spoke about the history and the background of genocide against Tutsi in my country, how it was prepared, executed, and what the Rwandans are doing to overcome the challenges of genocide. But we have a special section to talk about other massacres and the genocide, including the Holocaust, a Holocaust exhibition. And this Holocaust exhibition was very, very important for two reasons. One, Rwandans didn't, even let's say the Africans, because I have my friend from South Sudan, when I mentioned about Holocaust and say, what do you mean? What the Holocaust means? It was like the first time he heard about the Holocaust, the word the Holocaust. So Rwandans didn't really heard about it, about Holocausts. And it was very, very important to show Rwandans, to show survivors that they're not only one suffered, but what happened to them, it happened somewhere else, in a Holocaust particularly. Second thing to, which is very important, is how the way the genocide against Tutsi in Rwanda were prepared, it kind of inspired from the Holocaust. The genocide masterminders in my country, they got inspiration from the Holocaust self.
Mhm.
They went through the whole stages that the Holocaust went through. The you know I was reading the book of Stanton, who were describing 10 steps to genocide,
Mhm.
but they did the humanization. They did all the grouping and all the stages where they went through it. But at the same time, they use the same word, because when we talk about of course, in Rwanda they were using snakes and cockroaches, but this kind of words have been you find many dehumanizing names actually to the to Jews the time of Second World War.
Mhm.
So and by learning about how Holocaust was perpetrated, and also doing a little bit parallel on how genocide in Rwanda of the Tutsi in Rwanda was perpetrated, it's a huge learning on how these two genocide it was possible to prevent it, because they all had early warnings, which we should, the international community, instead of listening and paying attention of the early warnings, they kept quiet. They didn't have any action until it was too late, that millions of lives actually was exterminated. I have a small video.
Yes.
Um,
And any other
you
images from the Kigali Memorial you would like to share? That would be the time.
we have, for example, I just want to also showing actually the masterminders
Mhm.
of the Holocaust, actually including Hitler, and this guy, this guy is the one who said in 1993 that is going to prepare the apocalypse, and this actually where the SS and in German they were talking about the final solutions, and Hitler together. Um, so I was talking about, not only we have we have exhibition around the Holocaust. There are two things very important that really connect the history of the Holocaust and Rwanda. Um, First of all, I have to say there's that sympathy that these are survivors community together, the two communities, but they're all survivors. The second is how to learn from the Holocaust survivors on how, how the survivors themselves, they can learn from Holocaust survivors, how they deal with the past. But that actually leads us to each and every year on 27th of January, actually at the memorial, we organize the Holocaust Remembrance Day, which always attended, actually organized in collaboration together with the Embassy of Israel, the Embassy of Germany to Rwanda, and also the UN. So before I go further, I would like to year, this year, sorry, and like 1 month ago, we had a very informative, event where I would like to share. I'll stop it in the way, but I'll send everyone uh, the um, the link. But I was so amazed to hear the speech of Elie Wiesel to at the time of the opening of the Holocaust in the Yad Vashem, which is very important. I would like to share it, and I will cut it in short because of time. I'm very sure there is 8 minutes, which is very long for this
Mhm.
presentation. But I will share it with you, Shai, so that you
Yes.
can share to everyone, or I can share directly. So let's listen, let's take like a 3 minutes. So you can see the inspiration and also how this man, Elie Wiesel, as a Holocaust survivor, he spoke to Rwandans, even if he's not there, but even if this is a speech that was done quite some time back, but the wisdom in this speech, it's really huge lesson to Rwandans. It's a huge lesson to Africans and for humanity as well. So let's take like a 3 minute of it.
Let's listen.
Then, yeah.
This is fascinating.
Mr. Prime Minister, mes amis de France, Nitzolei Shoah Yekarim, as you walk through the museum, so magnificently conceived by Moshe Safdie, you wonder, where is the place of rage in all that? How come that the Jewish people, when we discovered the magnitude of cruelty and the consequences of hatred, how come that we were not possessed by an extraordinary, implacable rage of the killers, rage toward those who inspired the killers, rage towards the indifferent, those who knew and were silent. Where is rage? So you look and you look, and you are afraid to look. I am. I look at some pictures of Jews from Hungary, and I'm afraid to discover some that I have known. You read, and you read, and you say to yourself, where did they have the strength to write, to use words? Destined to whom? My good friends, all of us know, more or less, that there was a tragedy. And we also know, we must be honest about it, there are no words. Only those who were there know what it meant being there. And yet, we are duty-bound to try and not to bury our memories into silence. We try.
So, once again, coming back to your question, there's no word to describe it, but we're here to try and not to be silent. That's too. Actually, it's this speech is really very inspiring. So I wanted to share.
If I may say, okay, go on.
I want to share it with the audience so that and then people can see it on their own as well. So I will share it. If you share it on chat, that would be okay.
I think we will share it on our Facebook live feed. I'm not sure if you send it now. It will be shared. Freddy, so it seems that you personally find parallels between the Nazi perpetrators and the Hutu perpetrators, between victims and victims, survivors and survivors, but also between Holocaust education and the peace education that you provide. So let's talk a little bit about January 27th, International Holocaust Remembrance Day. What kind of activities do you normally plan and feature for that important day. I have to say, make an editorial comment on behalf of myself as a grandson of Holocaust survivors, on behalf of Emil Fish, the philanthropic founder of the Fish Center, who is a Holocaust survivor, and his family. It is so inspiring to, first of all, have a conversation with a survivor of the most catastrophic genocide that happened after the Holocaust. I cannot think about another case of an ethnic group trying quite successfully to destroy another one as a parallel to the Holocaust of European Jewry. But also how fascinating it is that of all places, it's in Africa, where you and your colleagues believe that a future generation can learn the lessons of their own genocide by looking at the Holocaust as a paradigm, by remembering it, and by looking at its root causes and at the key events of the Holocaust that happened, in a different century and in a different continent, in a totally different place. So that's so inspiring. I know that the focal point of a Holocaust commemoration in Kigali is International Holocaust Remembrance Day. So tell us a little bit about it, and then we'll start wrapping up and see if we have questions by those who are joining us live. If anyone is now watching us live on our Facebook page feed, please text us the questions, and I will be receiving them and addressing them to Freddy.
Yeah.
January
thank you,
27th.
Shai. Yeah. Thank you, Shai. And there is talking about the Holocaust Remembrance Day itself. What do we do, which is very, very important. The 2 or 3 activities that are very, very important and very inspiring. First of all, we always have opportunity as Rwandans to listen to a survivor. This time we couldn't with no travel. We couldn't get a survivor coming from other places. Last time we had the survivor from Israel, and but other time we get survivors from different other part of the world, from South Africa, from London, from America, and other countries. But this time was not possible. So it's very, very important for survivors in Rwanda and for the Rwandan community to listen to a Holocaust survivor, which we get opportunity to hear and to listen actually to get the message from Holocaust survivor in this day. The second very important part of it is that we get a lecturer. Mostly we get one of the museum around the world, for example, Yad Vashem and or the Holocaust centers. They send us a lecturer to come and give talk to Rwandans, and also to diplomats and other people actually living in Rwanda who attend this important event. We have to say that also this is happening at the Kigali Genocide Memorial, where we have exhibition, but also is a place where survivors values very much because it's a place where 250,000 victims of genocide are buried. And it's a kind of commemorating at the same time the victims of Tutsi, the time of genocide, but also commemorating this at the same time the victims of Jews in the time of Second World War. So this is really very, very important, and for us, this is really very significant event that's really and they have a very huge highlight by media and other communication platforms. You mentioned about the parallel that I can draw about Holocaust and genocide at Tutsi. I mentioned about how the the genocidaires, the masterminders of genocide, they get inspiration from the Hitler and other masterminders of the Holocaust in Germany. At the time that actually, when genocide stopped, actually, this is an example. In the house of actually the State House, we find that a pile of books of Mein Kampf from as a Hitler book, which clearly the president himself, and at the same time, and his surrounding and his groups, they get inspiration from this book. This was something that really I was so surprised when someone mentioned that the time of the genocide stopped, actually they found those books there. The other thing is what they did, they used to identify Tutsis. They used the identity card with, in the identity card, you have to mention that you're Tutsi or you're Hutu or Twa. Mm-hmm. So if someone stops you in a roadblock, there's no confusion because it's written in your document. Because at some point, Tutsi and it was difficult to identify the Tutsi and the Hutus. But having a document that really specify who you are, that was really very clear. And coming back to see the Jews, how they use a letter G into their passport, that was really a huge blow for all Rwandans to see how also the identity and the document were used to identify Jews the time of the Holocaust. So we have so many things, and the Holocaust survivors, of course, they living after a genocide, they live with a trauma. They live with a feeling of loss, which it is similar of what happened to Holocaust survivors. And you know, there is a second generation trauma, that this is a transmission of trauma. We now experiencing it. We heard about it from Holocaust survivors, that this actually their trauma have been transmitted to their own children and own grandchildren. And we now experiencing it with our own children, because we feel that we can, there's a whole signs of trauma that we as survivors transmitting to them. And when you look at the deniers of how people they deny genocide, they deny Holocaust, it's really similar process that's going on. The deniers, they still actually trying to not look at and acknowledge the fact that this event happened and how it happened. They're still denying that this happened. So it's a lot of parallels into this and these two events, which as survivors, as Rwandans, learning from Holocaust is very, very important. I want to mention one thing here. What actually, for my personally, I was not able to give my testimony. The first time I gave testimony is the time I visited the Yad Vashem, and by giving testimony and speaking through Holocaust lens, that's how I was able to open up and give my own testimony. So it had to talk about other events to be able to even to approach, actually to find an approach on how you can talk about yourself. And it has happened to many survivors in Rwanda, where after learning about Holocaust, this was actually, we say, we have to start talking about ourselves together, because this is very important. Because most of the Holocaust survivors, they mention that it's very important to speak for the next generation, which is become something very important on our side as well. The last thing I want to say is how the Holocaust education have been integrated into the national curriculum in Rwanda. So the Rwanda have taken the Holocaust teachers teaching as a serious lesson, as a serious content that need to be taught to Rwandan generation. So this is very, very important to show that there is point of learning from each other.
Freddy, we have some questions from some of our some people in our audience who are joining us. Deborah is asking, are the two main ethnic groups in Rwanda distinguishable by language, religion, or physical characteristics? How does one tell the two groups apart? Asking about the Tutsi and the Hutus.
Yeah, this is a very good question, because when I started to say that Rwandan, we were one people, and we didn't have a Tutsi land, we didn't have Hutu land and Twa land. At the same time, we didn't have Tutsi language or Hutu language. We were all speak one language, Kinyarwanda. We had one culture. We didn't have many cultures. And we had one God, and we had one region, and one and living in the same country in a small one. So those are characteristics that shows that you have a different tribes, you have a different ethnic groups in different regions, but we didn't have any of this one. That shows how we were one person, one people, but over. Sadly, actually, we get divided. Sadly, we get to try to find a way to identify ourselves, which was difficult for the colonialists. That's why the identity card was introduced. If I cannot see in your eyes and your face, identify you with your neighbor, at least I can read it in your papers, then it's more easy.
Freddy, Steve is asking if you can share a story of reconciliation between perpetrators and victims, or acts of contrition by perpetrators.
Yeah, in Rwanda, we may say one of the success stories that after 27 years or 25 years of the genocide, the Rwanda took journey of reconciliation. This is actually a journey that have taken right after genocide, and now 27 years, we may say that the reconciliation and forgiveness is taking a very strong root in Rwanda.
That is the celebrated Gacaca, is that right?
Yeah, this was done through making reconciliation as a life. Is not really something you do in the morning and tomorrow and afternoon you don't do it. The reconciliation process become part of a country life through justice, through education, through economy, through alleviation or fighting corruption, and also particularly into justice, because when without justice, there's no reconciliation. Without justice, there is no forgiveness that may happen. But the justice given to survivors, this is actually lead to those two actually very important outcome for the process. So in Rwanda, after genocide, we had a lot of detainees. The suspect of genocide, they were really, really full of jails, and the estimation of time it will take to judge those the suspect of genocide. People say that may have to take 200 years, And you can imagine no perpetrator will be still alive. So, so what we did, we said that, yes, it takes time. Yes, it has to be done, but it has to be done on our own way, on how the Rwandans used to resolve our own conflict and bring back the communities together. So Gacaca, which was actually community justice that was introduced based on our tradition, it had like a hybrid model, which brought actually learn from the modern way of justice and combining with our traditional way of conflict resolution, and both of them actually work together to make Gacaca the result of Gacaca we had in 10 years time, where the perpetrators were brought to their own village, and those people, whether survivors and the perpetrators who have seen them, who have seen the perpetrator committing crimes, they become witnesses. And also where the communities actually encouraged the perpetrators to confess and ask for forgiveness, and also survivors who on their own side we have been also taking a step to forgive their perpetrators, which really something very, very important. I may say that Gacaca was one of the solution given to genocide as a consequence of genocide, in the way of bringing justice and to survivors. But at the same time, apart from giving justice to survivors, but to help the country also to move forward by promoting reconciliation, peace and unity in the country.
It seems, Freddy, like the Holocaust is far more than just a parallel. And I have to say, I wanted to thank you for this conversation. I personally was both inspired and fascinated by what you had to share, and I'm sure that the viewers would agree with me. It seems like the Holocaust is not just a parallel that you wanted to draw at the background. What I found most compelling is that you said that through learning about the Holocaust, we learn more about the Rwandan genocide itself. That the parallels actually help the victims share their testimonies and confess and become more informed about their own experiences. In Holocaust Remembrance around the world, we really look for exactly for that, to learn about how the Holocaust in places that us, for Americans, would be unusual, how the Holocaust, in a way like a plant, is being planted in a certain soil and evolves in a different way and takes a local context. Our next session will be on March 21st, Sunday, March 21st. Normally, Holocaust Remembrance around the world is on the last Sunday of the month, but because of the holiday of Passover, it will be on March 21st at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, and we will be speaking to the chairman of SASUA 75, to Hugh Baver, who is a baseball player and a leader who moved to the Dominican Republic in order to set up a museum that would tell the story of SASUA, the community that became a safe haven for Jews during World War II and the Holocaust. I wanted to thank the producer of our program, Lois Roman, who is also a graduate student at the Fish Center, and to thank profusely Odaya Blau, the coordinator of the Fish Center, who helped us with the Facebook Live and the Zoom and the connection between the two of them and the marketing and everything revolving around this program.
Our primary mission at the Fish Center at Yeshiva University is bestowing a master's degree for students interested in Holocaust and genocide studies. We have a short video clip about that now.
If there's truth to the saying that history repeats itself, then Holocaust remembrance and the study of genocide is not only a vital part of history, but also a crucial warning for the future.
Confronting Holocaust deniers and distorters is one of the most important tasks of our generation.
The Fish Center at Yeshiva University was founded with this mission. of preserving the history of the Holocaust as well as more recent genocides. Our master's program offers a unique investigation of the Holocaust of European Jewry, with an interdisciplinary approach through the lenses of law, social work, history, theology, education, literature, and political science. If this sounds like a path you would like to pursue, apply now or learn more. I'd like to extend an invitation for you to join us and become a member of our growing community of scholars and educators.
We look forward to next month when we will be speaking with Dr. Minaza Freddy, who is the head of the Holocaust Genocide and Interfaith Education Center at Manhattan College. We also want to thank our helpers today, Alana Murley, who ran all the technology for us, and also our community sponsors, the Holocaust and Human Rights Center in White Plains, New York, the Center for Holocaust Education in the East Valley JCC in Arizona, 3GNY, the Florida Holocaust Museum, the Rabbi Arthur Schneier Program for International Affairs at Yeshiva University, Shadowlight in Canada, Manhattan College, the Sosua 75 in the Dominican Republic, the Holocaust Memorial and Museum in San Antonio, Texas, Johannesburg Holocaust and Genocide Studies Center in South Africa, 2 different programs at the University of Miami, the Holocaust and Education Center in Fukuyama, Japan, the Illinois Holocaust Museum in Skokie, the Sister Rose Thiering Fund in Education for Jewish and Christian Studies, the Lake District Holocaust Project in the UK, Jewish Gen, and the Maltz Museum in Cleveland, Ohio.
Lastly, Freddy Mutanguha, thank you for being with us. Is there anything that you want to share with our viewers by way of conclusion?
I want also to say thank you very much, and for you, Shai, and all
You're
the
so
producers of this program. It's very, very important, and I'm so pleased that we can be part of it. But at the same time, I would say that it's very, very important that we do more and more and more, and I'm very glad that you're planning to do it. And for the audience, I think it's very important that we learn from the Holocaust, because by learning from it, we are able to do our own homework as human being, as a part of human community, to prevent the genocide and to prevent the atrocities and all human rights abuses as before it become too late. So I call upon everyone actually listening to this discussion and conversation, that let's put our hands together and make this world as a good place to live. Thank you.
Freddy, thank you for an incredibly inspiring program and conversation. And thank you to our viewers. And we'll be with you on March 21st, Sunday, March 21st at 10 a.m. for another conversation, another episode in Holocaust Remembrance around the world. Freddy, thank you. We will definitely stay in touch.